Okay, we're now to consider the operating budget of Board of Education. Is there a motion? Any additions or subtractions?
Do that operating on at this point?
I'm on the operating.
I have no idea.
33, 141.
Do I make a motion?
Yeah, we're gonna get it.
Get the total.
We just did that. Every time we do budgets, we got the I think it was in our bag.
The total. What page is the total budget?
23. It's on 21.
It's on 21?
It's on 23 as well.
Micah. Mary, did you give it to us, or it was in our, it was upstairs in the folder? I just took it.
Oh, is there another one up there?
Sure.
Probably in your folder.
The proposed,
Upstairs,
So,
yes.
just your,
the proposed budget was
Okay.
$33,135,941, which was a $957,501 raise, which equates to 2.98%. So that's the operating budget that has, and all we can do is act on the budget. We don't have any
Line item,
line item,
except between capital and...
capital yet. Reserve. Everybody with any motion?
I would make a motion to reduce the operating budget to $32 million flat.
I would second that.
Motion's been made, seconded. Discussion.
Well, from my perspective, and from anyone's perspective, if you're aware of the debt we have encumbered this year and the next 3 years, we are getting in 2020 to a cap of almost $5 million in debt. 3.8 million this year, 4.4 for 2019, 4.8 in 2020. I just cannot wrap my head around whether belt tightening was done enough in all of these budgets. The spending that's mandated, that's coming up, including salaries negotiated in the Board of Education, 3% a year for the next 3 years, I can't imagine how we can ask our taxpayers. Last year, we asked them for 10% increase. I just want to know if enough belt tightening has been done, and this is just pushing the taxpayers over the edge, and we can't afford it. That's the big thing. I don't see anywhere where this money, we're printing money like crazy,
Wish we could.
but we're paying the piper now.
Well, within this operating budget, you're looking at the increase, which represents 2.98%. I don't have the number exactly in front of me, but just our transportation cost alone was, how much of an increase was it? I don't know if you dig that page out.
4%.
7.317.
What was the dollar amount?
207.37.
So of the 957, just in the increase in the buses, you've got, 25% of the increase of your increase is just the buses. We also had increase in the healthcare, which we just dealt with, and we added back in on the town side with the motions that I heard. The pensions, which we added back on, which the motions that I heard. You know, there's also the negotiated wage increases that you discussed, that we have. And there's some, you know, some reduction in the overall, I forget how many teachers were down.
In relationship to the students that you're.
Yeah, but, you know, the thing is, with a school, we all know, you go into school, if it's 16 kids rather than 18 kids, you're not losing a teacher, there's,
Point of order.
yeah.
I believe you-
First of all, point of order, you're not even seated, so you can't make, you can't make a point of order. You cannot make a point of order. You're not seated. That's true.
Well, as the chairman, I think you're doing a lot more than chairing this meeting.
You can have somebody else who's seated can make a point of order, but you can't.
Okay.
I was trying to explain something, and then maybe I'm taking a little liberty about giving facts out as the chair.
Well, you're taking a lot more than you're
Well,
giving.
well, again, you don't have a voice, you're not seated. Any other discussion?
Well, I think Ona has a point in terms of like tightening belts and whatnot, but I think that everybody can understand that education is important. And I think that the Board of Ed and the superintendent did the best they could to, you know, cut things. And there are, you know, you're asking the it's almost like a $1.1 million cut below what their 2017-18 budget is. And I agree that there has to be cuts, because, you know, we can't live with these increases. But we also have to be mindful of having a good education system. So I think that, you know, we probably try to compromise, but that's a lot to cut.
It really isn't. It really isn't. I mean, the superintendent and the Board of Education are locked between a rock and a hard place. State mandates, teacher contracts, whatever you want to look at, they're stuck with certain things. Their only flexibility, and it really is no flexibility at this point, is for someone to say, you're going to have 25 students in every class, and you're going to have to eliminate 15 teachers. Otherwise, we're just going forward every year with more money and more money and more money until the bubble bursts. Because at some point, the taxpayers say, enough is enough, we're done.
And
I don't know if we're there yet, okay? The Board of Education worked very hard on this budget. It's a very concise budget. I personally am going to make a recommendation that their capital budget be increased back to $476,000, because I know what they have in there is what they need. But at some point, we have to start looking at this with all due seriousness. I mean, the town is run by about 1,600 people who have kids in the school. There are 13,500 people in this town. Lots of them are paying taxes. They have no kids and haven't had kids for a long time in the school system. Many of them are on fixed income. 15% of them are in the poverty area, but they have to pay their taxes. So when do you start? When do you make a decision that this is where we're going to begin? I've said enough.
Further discussion?
I have never seen a budget that you couldn't take 10% out of, at least without really hurting.
To restate the motion, so we know what the motion is.
My motion was that we reduce the operating budget requested
You went to 32 million, right?
to $32 million.
Now, is that, that's less than what was spent?
That's what I said, it was less than the.
It's less than what we spent last year, yeah, by $178,000.
So I thought we had, under the state requirements, you had to fund it the level last year.
No,
What was the
No,
minimum
no.
funding?
Can I speak?
the OMB, we don't know what that number is. At this point, we don't know what the state budget minimum is. and we probably won't know till April or early May. But they would, it'd probably come in around $30 million is my best guess.
I understand you can reduce your operating by $3,000 for every student that is not in the system.
Yes,
Marion.
you mean
So you can
the
reduce.
formula is very complicated, they've made it more complicated,
Yeah.
and I would rely heavily on Mary Ann O'Donnell to tell me what the number is.
Go ahead.
Mary Ann?
You want me to-
Yeah.
So MBR has not been decided yet. We've been in contact with the state. They are correct that previous MBR calculations, as they have stood in the past, have related to the what you were allocated in the previous year, and then there has been a formula for a drop in enrollment and 3,000 per student. That the MBR calculation is being altered and changed and is not been set. So we've been in contact with the state, and the last conversation was they don't have calculations and probably won't until April or May. And a lot of that has to do with the mid-year reductions in ECS to towns, and so they're trying to figure out how all that factors in. So it is unknown at this point, but in the past, it has either been flat or a reduction less than the previous years based on potentially an enrollment calculation and a dollar amount. But I'm not sure whether they're gonna factor in any of the rescissions. So it kind of is up in the air, but
There was a mention to class size. Is there any state standards on class size?
there's not a specific number, no.
I in no way want to impugn the work of the Board of Education or the work of you, but I cannot see how the town can afford to spend like this. We are borrowing so much money, and our debt doesn't pay for a book, doesn't pay to plow a road, millions and millions of dollars. It's only going to increase. We can't afford to run the town and run the schools at these levels anymore. You can wait to see how the vote goes, and that's another thing. I think that, I don't understand, there's no law that says we have to have two votes, one for the budget, one for the town, and one for the Board of Ed. That was an arbitrary decision made that can be changed by the charter. I'm just throwing it in, it has nothing to do with this, but down the road, I think it needs to be considered.
To have
Well,
them together.
I'm sure
To have them
the
One
together.
budget.
charter revision is going
One
to be
vote.
meeting, and any suggestions would be welcome there, I'm sure.
A lot of people don't realize that this is just an arbitrary thing, they think it was state mandated.
There's other things that, there's a lot of things that could be changed by charter, so I'm sure there's going to be people speaking to the charter revision about different things that we have, and I encourage you to go down and speak before the charter revision.
Well, if you think we can afford this, then go for it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 3-2, right? Is there a motion to do anything on the,
I make a motion to reduce the operating budget by, to 32,800,000, so to reduce it by 300,000.
give me the number again?
I think it's 32,
Three,
I mean, no, because you're reducing it by 300,000.
300,000 from the,
33, 135, 941.
right.
So it's at 10%.
Is there a second? Second. There's been a motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Can I have the number again?
Yeah, I would like the number again.
33, 135, 941, take $300,000 off. Do you want to give me a number?
I see it,
32,
thanks.
835, 940.
You got it?
Yes, thank you.
32,
835, 941.
Further discussion.
I have one thing that I have to say. there's a lot of things that need to be done town-wide and school-wise. I think we need to, what's the word? Put them together. Consolidate. And many of you know that I've always been in favor of bringing the business manager from the Board of Ed to the town. That's how it was. I think once we get, I wish Dawn would stay forever, but once we get a good business manager, finance director here, it would, with the business manager and her secretary, it would help save $171 plus. That's one consolidation. The other thing, and I have friends that will kill me for this, but Pearson has got to be closed. With 253 students, it can't, I don't know what you do with it. I assume you put one grade in each school, but we can't afford to have 253 kids in a big school like that, with their own principal and, nurse and teachers and, so I mean, I think it has to, I want it down $171,000, I'd be happy, but I'll take the $300,000.
A further comment?
Yeah, I'm looking at $7 to $10 million in new issue bonds going out next year. We have reval coming out almost immediately after that for another $300,000. We have all these contracts coming in. I don't know where they stand and what we're going to really expend on these contracts, because we're up in the air on all of that. I mean, I don't want to beat on the Board of Education, but the wider picture for the Board of Finance is dire.
And for the taxpayer.
For the taxpayer, yeah.
There are surrounding towns that mill rate's going down. Mr. Grand List is increasing.
Saber's school budget went up at 1%.
Is there
And they're lowering the mill rate because Grand List is up. That's not our situation here. Sorry.
further discussion? Anyone down there? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 3-2. Let the record show we don't want to cut.
Well, didn't
No,
we
you
just
just
cut
cut
it?
it.
You just cut it.
cut 300.
Yeah, I know. We just voted for a cut. You voted against the cut.
Wasn't your-
They voted.
Oh, you're putting a sticker on my eye, is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's putting a
Isn't
number
that
on you.
charming of you?
And
Okay, then we have the capital budget.
as I said, I'm going to propose that the capital budget be increased to $476,000.
Thankful that's what you got.
Having worked on the capital budget for the Board of Education, I know they put in there everything they have to do, and I think they should get the money to expend, and they should get the money to get it done. So instead of 400,000, I want 476.
Is there a second? Hearing none. Is there any other motion? A motion to, I guess we need a motion to adopt the capital and operating, or we just do one vote of the two of them? Mary?
It's up to you. Some of it, not total, because we have debt, so.
Either way, I don't care. We want two motions or one motion?
Might as well do two, it's cleaner that way.
All right, a motion to approve the capital budget for the Board of Education. As, what's the number there?
400.
Is it second?
Second.
Second.
Discussion? We already had, really, substance, this is just process. All in favor, aye? Opposed, nay? Abstentions?
Was that at 400 or was that with the 76,000 back?
Never.
then second.
That's why I didn't know why I had to vote on it, because it was just a simple vote, but whatever.
And that was all in favor? Yes.
Yeah, there was,
One.
was there any abstentions or
I abstained because
Okay,
I
one
don't like the way
abstention.
this meeting's run.
one abstention? The operating budget. Is there a motion?
Operating with debt.
Oh, that we did.
We did operate.
We did operate.
You want, you mean debt, right?
Motion to accept the operating budget.
We did that.
This is the debt.
So we did the cap. We did the operating.
Yeah.
We're on debt.
So now we have the debt.
The debt is $2,617,381.
Is that the number?
I make a motion that we approve the debt
Truth in your mouth.
interest all service obligation.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried.
Well, we did it. It's gotta move to the town meeting.
So we also have to have a motion to move this to the
Public hearing.
public hearing?
Do a total, a grand total.
Yeah, what's the grand total?
So we'll make the motion, the grand total when we get it, and refer it to public hearing. So wait on total, ready?
54,153,771.
Do I have a motion to refer this to total budget as to the,
We have the school budget. Excuse me, the town school budget
we
School,
gave you the combined total.
of everything, but what's the school? Everything.
Yeah, what's the
She
school?
gave it to
The
Thought you
school,
did that.
school with operating capital and debt is 35,853,322.
853,822.
35,853,322.
323?
322.
Move that to, we'll make a motion to move that to,
Public
Public
hearing,
hearing.
April.
So moved.
do I hear a second? Been moved and seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Any other business that we have? Motion to adjourn. Second? Have a good evening. Stay warm and out of the snow.